Hello, welcome to another episode of Smart Freight Conversations. In Smart Freight Conversations, we engage in conversations about how to decarbonize logistics and how can we jointly move to a zero carbon logistics industry. My name is Christoph Wolff. I'm the CEO of Smart Freight Center. I'll be your host today, and I'm looking forward to speaking. And we are exploring between how airlines and freight forwarders work together towards this goal. And I'm here today with Blaise Brigaud, Senior Vice President of Group Sustainability of Air France KLM. Hello. And Chelsea Lamar, VP Sustainability at AIT Worldwide Logistics. Welcome.
Yes.
And just to get started, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your organization and how you collaborate?
So I'm Chelsea Lamar. I'm the Vice President of Global Sustainability at AIT Worldwide Logistics. I've been in this position for a little bit over 2 years, 2.5 years, and we are a freight forwarder. So we are moving freight globally, air, ocean, and ground. I think it's a very interesting place to be within the supply chain because we as a freight forwarder, generally, we're not selling a widget. There's not a certain, like physical product, like we're selling a service. And so when we're working within sustainability, we are needing both the partnership from the shipper, from our customer who is procuring these freight services for us, as well as our carrier partners who we work with. And then, whoever else additionally along the supply chain, like your producers or anybody else. So collaboration, super important. That's been a lot of what we've been working on over the last couple of years. We do have our own net zero goals. We have a net zero goal for our scope 1 and 2 emissions by 2035, which for us is really our energy usage within our warehouse. And then we do own a small fleet of, well, I guess it depends on where you're standing in the industry. If it's small, but like 350 tractors that we're working to decarbonize using HVO renewable diesel as well as electric. And then we do have a Scope 3 2050 net zero goal, which is really aligning with our airline partners and the ocean carriers and the overall industry. So we're here to support, definitely here to collaborate, and we've had a really strong partner in Air France KLM as well. So
thanks, Chelsea. So my name is Blaise. I do represent Air France KLM, one of the proud partners of AIT. So Air France KLM, in a nutshell, it's a global airline group. We're composed of Air France, KLM, and Transavia. We do operate across 3 core businesses: passenger air transport, cargo air freight, and maintenance, repair, and overall, so aircraft maintenance. My role within Air France KLM would be to set the decarbonization strategy, setting targets, setting objectives, making sure that we've got a plan supporting this. Air France KLM to support the net zero transition to 2050. In terms of levers, you could think of fleet renewal, you can think of SAF. And I would say today, one of my missions is to support the creation of low carbon products. So products, offerings, incorporating SAF. And with IAT, how do we collaborate? We collaborate in making sure that we have the right offerings incorporating SAF.
Excellent, very good. Part of a product is you have to sell it. So, and I think you're both in the market of selling product to customers. Especially here we talk about air freight customers, but obviously passenger aircraft has belly freight, so it's very much together. So how would you characterize the current situation in selling a sustainable product to the markets?
So first and foremost, I would say, as we operate both passenger operations and cargo operations, I would say air freight operations, we see more demand generated by our cargo customers. So cargo air freight is punching above its weight in our group when it comes to relatively compared in terms of sizes. And so that is extremely interesting to see how air freight is evolving. We see demand growing for lower carbon products. And so that to us is a sign that we should keep on offering transparent, offering easy and understandable products, and probably link them to the standard offerings we have.
Yes, I think that is right. Yeah, like I think being able to talk about a sustainability offer in the same way that we talk about a general freight offer makes a lot of sense for the customers that we serve. You know, from my perspective, a lot of the work I do now, it is commercial, and it is a lot of selling into the SAF market. That's not my background at all. I'm an engineer by training, and I've always been like more of an executor, like project manager, that kind of thing, versus in more of a sales role. But at AIT, it's all part of a sales role, working at a service-based organization. It's like if you want to get something done, you do need to find these partners and convince them to work with you. From a customer demand perspective, we're also in a unique spot because our two biggest market shares are high tech, the hyperscalers, and pharmaceutical. And so these are both really good markets for sustainability sales, in my opinion. Obviously the hyperscalers, so Google, Meta, Oracle, everybody, they all have their own goals related to this area. Oftentimes they have a budget. Also, their product cost is very high. Their logistics cost is very high. And so when you're talking about, like a green fee or a green adder within this group, it's a very small percentage actually of like the product value. And then it's also a small percentage of the logistics cost because we're managing their product so closely. There's so much security. There's all these other considerations. And then very similarly for pharma, and probably even better for pharma, in terms of like a percentage of cost versus the product value, it's just a very small adder. And for a lot of what we do as AIT, it's like, cancer medication, like life-saving medication that needs to be managed every second of throughout the whole supply chain. So the logistics cost is high, the product value is high, the product weight is low. And so that makes like a nice combination of things to be able to sell SAF. So that's been my perspective on the demand.
So we have something in common. So I'm an engineer as well. So a chemical engineer, actually worked on Fischer-Tropsch synthesis, many years ago.
Thank you.
And so I like this element of segmentation,
Yes.
because I don't think this is actually known broadly. So I think your argument is, so it's easier to sell into markets where the price sensitivity may be less, and at the same time the maybe awareness of sustainability is high. How would you see the market moving over time lately overall? So is this becoming more of a topic or less of a topic? And if you look at other, let's say, heavily air freighting industries, what's the situation there?
Yeah. From my perspective, it is becoming more of a topic. And, I think everybody within sustainability gets this question a lot, particularly those of us who are US based with the change in administration and some of the rollback of regulations related to sustainability. I have found that our corporate customers, their sustainability goals have remained the same. Oftentimes they are doing their planning on, more than a 4-year cycle. So they're thinking about the future. And I do still see a lot of what we do within transportation as a bit of an emerging market. So I see a lot of potential within the customer segments that we have to do this education, start talking with them about it, pilot a little bit, bring things to scale. And I definitely, sort of when I started 2.5 years ago to now, I get more inquiries from our commercial teams about, can you come talk to this customer related to SAF, marine fuel, EVs, technology, whatever it is.
Great.
Yeah, and I would say Chelsea being based in Chicago, I'm based in Paris, we are an example of what works. It doesn't have to be, we do not have necessarily to be in the same geographies, but we do align on delivering the best product. It means finding the appropriate cost, the appropriate pricing, and making sure that it's embedded in what we can offer. it's all about negotiating together. It's all about understanding what we want to achieve together. But I think IAT and Air France KLM is a proof that it's feasible. We have we signed a multi-million agreement on the SAF product offerings we have, and it's definitely a good signal. So I'm thankful to be with Chelsea this morning as a proof of that.
Excellent. So I think if you look at the market statistics, so Air France KLM has definitely been among airlines a leader, at the top of the market when it comes to embracing SAF. So what makes you do that? So why did you see this? Do you see that as a priority?
You mean, I think the question is, what is our DNA at Air France KLM? Look, we primarily operate from France, the country of the Paris Agreements on climate change. We also primarily operate from the Netherlands. It's a very interesting culture of innovation and sustainability. And so definitely when you look at sustainability, it's in our DNA. So we do have the voice of the leader. It's who we are. We consistently ranked amongst the top users of SAF, thanks to our customers, thanks to the way we've been able to design offerings with them. And I can say, B2C customers, we design to our passenger business, very interesting B2C offers. On the corporate front for air freight, it's the same. And so I guess the question is how to live up to our DNA. And the answer would be making sure that we always innovate, that we test what works with our customers, and that we try to create standards that will make the industry progress altogether.
Yeah. Well, it's often said logistics is a team sport. So you need to work across the value chain. Nobody can do it alone.
It is.
So you already referred to some of the recent work that you have been able to do.
Yes.
Can you tell us more about it? So maybe some of the practical aspects of that.
Yeah. So we work very closely, our teams, between AIT and Air France KLM. So we have done, I think, 3 different SAF deals now. Our very first SAF agreement was with Air France KLM. And I know, Blaise. I also know the whole sustainability team. I know the fuel team. I know everybody at Air France KLM. And that's on purpose. It's because we want to know, again, with the supply chain, we want to know where the feedstocks are coming from. We want to know everything about the proof of sustainability. We want to know everything about the producer. And this is also a way for us to make sure when we are going and talking to customers about purchasing SAF, that we're able to say we have a high degree of confidence that this is an environmentally responsible way to do the fuel procurement. And that's also something that our customers demand. Obviously, the hyperscalers, pharmaceutical companies, those that are in the public eye a little bit related to their sustainability commitments, they need to know that the due diligence is being done, that they're purchasing a product that really is advancing sustainability that is real, that's sort of like working towards the aims that we all have as an industry. So we work very closely together with our airline partners in order to be able to do that and have that assurance for ourselves and our customers.
Yeah.
I'm glad to have your trust, because you're saying that, purchasing sustainability products, purchasing lower emission products is about trust, is about transparency, is about believing that your supplier is having the right DNAs, but also providing the right proofs, and not diving into what makes our deal a winning deal. It's I can give you as an example the constant innovation that we're having at Air France KLM to serve our customers and to make sure that we do provide the required transparency. We implemented a few weeks ago a SAF management system. So we signed a collaboration with Choose, who's going to be helping us professionalize, making sure we have a chain of custody that is audited, that allows real-time and transparent reporting, and to the benefit of our customers. And, if we haven't been able to sign collaborations with IAT and others a few years ago, probably we would have been a little bit, late in the process of making sure that we understand what needs to be done. And so, yeah, today to me is a celebration. We're progressing, professionalizing new milestones, and the future is good looking.
Great. So I think these deals or these examples, these landmark examples are important. Yeah. So and I think they're important also the communication value, so people see it's happening. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of news at how difficult it is. It comes with a lot of expert know-how. Yeah.
Yes.
So we should touch about book and claim. So carbon credits. A complex material. So how do you see if you want to scale this? Because at the end of the day, it's still at minuscule levels. Yeah. So the share of SAF it's not mainstreamed yet. Yeah. So we are still in like early adopter expert communities, and it's seen difficult. How can we scale this? So how can we get to a 10x level? Yeah.
Yeah. Book and claim is critical, I think, to scaling the SAF market. For me, particularly as a freight forwarder, and again, with the customer segments that I have, which are the hyperscalers and the pharmaceutical companies, they do not want any impact to their operations. Like, they're not going to wait and hold, medication at an airport to make sure that it's on a plane that's actually fueling with SAF. Like, for us, where we don't own planes, it's not part of our infrastructure. We don't have anything to do with pipelines. We don't have anything to do with the rules of how airports do the blending before or after it reaches the airport, all of these things. For us as a freight forwarder, there's no way for us to transact on SAF without leveraging book and claim. So I do think it's really important because the alternative, I think, is that people will just wait until it feels, it's more possible physically, which is a long time away. And I don't think that we'll be able to scale the market as is required, build something better that as we want to do with just the voluntary market. But I do think there remains a lot of opportunity within the voluntary market for us to go and tap into in the near term and continue to make these incremental steps towards this future where we have SAF at every airport, where we're not constrained, where we don't need book and claim. Like that's the goal one day, is that it's not necessary, but today it is. And today that is what enables us to be able to procure fuel.
That may be still a few days away.
Yeah,
so
maybe a
SAF
few,
at every
just a couple,
airport,
yeah.
So how can we scale?
Just on book and claim, I think, as Chelsea is saying, it is kind of a no-brainer for us. Being able to lift physical barriers is making sense. And I would dare to say, especially when you look at IAT and Air France KLM having a multi-year expertise in handling our SAF, and our chain of custody, we are ready. We're ready to remove that physical barrier. Book and claim, yes, as a no-brainer. And as a complement, if you look at what is allowed by protocols, I would say one of the barriers to SAF adoption as a mainstream product is also the fact that it's not recognized by the Greenhouse Gas Protocol. And so it's also something that Air France KLM and our partners are advocating for.
So I think we all have the opportunity to work together on that. As you said, I like that you bluntly said it's a no-brainer. So there were,
it is.
I would say 2 years ago, so there was actually, I wouldn't say majority, but a lot of folks out there who are rather concerned. About greenwashing. I think you talked about trust. I think these, Sustainable Aviation Fuels have to do a lot of trust. Where does the feedstock come from, and is it handled double claiming? And so we work together on that, and I feel with the recent announcements of the greenhouse gas protocols and the science-based target initiative, so it seems it's more like a question of how and when rather than if. So it has become a technical conversation again on how to account for that. Is that in line with your observation?
Yes, it's definitely in line. I think that there has been more guidance recently, which is pointing us all in the right direction. And, we'll continue to provide input through Smart Freight Center or through the actual rulemaking that SBTI or GGP are doing. I do think it is still a barrier today, because I hear from, again, these customers that do have higher logistics budgets that perhaps are a little bit less conscientious on the price and really focused on service. We get this question of, is it going to count towards our SBTI goal, or like, is it going to be acceptable via GHGP? As a concern, I think sometimes more often than just the cost. So I do think it's really important that we as an industry sort of develop the standard guidance that we can, again, then take to our customers and say, here is how it's all going to work. Here's how our program is in alignment with what are the rule makers and the standards. And I think that would give, additional confidence to the market. But I also see, as you mentioned, that it's definitely more accepted now than it was 2 years ago. So I think in the right direction.
I could not agree.
Agree more.
Yeah, agree more. I just say that we will continue to provide our input and show responsibility.
So I think as we work together between Smart Freight Center and your organization, so we have the chance to do this, and towards the market as well, to the regulators, to Greenhouse Gas Protocol and SBTI. So I think we are very much involved in the technical working groups of both organizations. And so I think in earlier times, there was, I think, the thought about, okay, let's first get the SBTI and GHP guidance checked off, and then we can start working on it. And now we do actually parallel processing. So we in a way, we act as if it was already there. So we feed the practical experience into the technical working groups and get feedback, and hopefully by the time they come to conclusion, then we are say, okay, we can switch. That's the theory. So that's a bit of theory. So we'll see if we're able to do that.
I hope so.
Yeah, I think you're talking about working in sequence or working in parallel, and I would say doing sustainability is about making sure that we progress on all fronts. So, of course, if you sequence your tasks, you will be slower than if you try to move everything in parallel. So I would say, let's make bets, let's be serious, let's be responsible, but let's advance, let's progress, and let's test and learn. And you will always find Air France KLMs ready to pilot, new contracts, new ways of thinking, new ways of doing business. So we would be definitely here for our customers if they want to test things with us.
Excellent. So that's very encouraging. And we talked about the regulatory constraints, SBTI protocol. We talked about the markets and the necessity to sell, but more adoption, specifically in certain segments, and some landmark achievements that you guys created by working together. So what would be maybe the one or two, if you could make a wish, so to what should happen in order to accelerate that journey, which is needed, So what would you be asking for?
I'd be asking for a lot, I guess. But I do think, sort of even more widespread acceptance of book and claim is really important. I think there's still a lot of education that's needed. Book and claim as a concept, I don't think is particularly intuitive. Like, still get a lot of questions like, the staff's on this plane, our freight's on this plane, how does that make any sense? So that sort of like kind of base level understanding, creating that would be one thing. And then the other thing would be, in addition to the voluntary market, additional policy support, whether it's through incentives, mandates, whatever, however it should look. But I do think that there is more structural support that's also needed in order to create the scale that we really want.
Yeah, definitely support is key. If I'm to ask for something else, complementarily to what she's asking for, I'm starting to think that one of the barriers is that SAF is not considered as part of what should be a standard offering, and so that is one of the fights we're having. We're having as a fight that SAF is a product. Selling and having in your, off your shelves a lower carbon product is part of what makes new future proof. And so I guess also continue communicating on the fact that it should be part of, our standard offerings, and making sure that it's relevant that would be one of my
Yeah, I think that's in line with what you were saying. Obviously, I think this is, I mean, voluntary commitments are super important, yeah, and I think they vary by industry. Making this part of about more a regulatory mandated offering would be key. So I think the maritime sector has been working on market-based measures, a global scheme. So hasn't come there, but maybe there's the right timing for that. And maybe aviation is also a good sector to innovate. Yeah, I see. Actually, I have a chance to spend a lot of time in Asia. So I see like in Singapore, I see in China, I see in India now. Actually, a lot of interest. Yeah, a lot of interest for that. So I'm hopeful. We're all hopeful.
Yeah, good sign.
So Chelsea, Blaise, thank you very much for your time. And for encouraging examples and expectations, and looking forward to working with you on that.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Great conversation. So,
Thank you.